What's up, guys? You know what night it is. Thursday night, off-centered with Dustin, the personal finance dad. And we have a special guest, not just our normal boring guest, but a special guest, Ryan from GemRate, who I'm very excited to introduce you to if you're not already familiar with him and what he's doing, because he is really going to help us avoid overpaying for cards that are just going to get pumped out of PSA. So we'll be talking with him in about 25 minutes. But it's been a very exciting couple of weeks. And of course, we got the National coming up next week, which I'm definitely pumped about. I also just came back from Mexico the other day, so we might talk a bit about that. But without further ado, welcome back. Now let's get to work. Let's bring on our mediocre guest. There he is.
Evening. You survived Mexico.
I did.
I didn't hear from you for, I think that was probably the longest I haven't gotten a text from you in a while. I mean, it was probably like a week.
Yeah. I'm usually texting you like every 2 days. Dustin's always texting me, how come no one's subscribing? How do I get more subscribers?
Yeah, why are my subscribers going backwards?
Why are my subscribers going backwards? I'm like, Dustin, you gotta stop putting out 7 videos a day. You're scaring people off.
Yeah, Brad's like, just make a video once a month and you'll be fine.
Yeah, just go all out. Just go for the home run. What's up, Troy? Good to see you. I actually had cupcakes last night. I bought them last night from Trader Joe's in the like plastic carton where I can keep them for 2 weeks. And I was going to keep them for tonight. It didn't work out. And I already drank my smoothie, but good to see you here. Mike C is always in the house. I already kind of have to pee, so I don't know what the over-under will be, so make your guesses now. That'll be cool. And yeah, maybe we should talk about a little meetup at the National.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, I just got a text from the bullpen that my PSA order is ready. I got that about 2 days ago, and I still haven't had a chance to go down there. But maybe, depending on what cards are there, I bring them to the National to trade, to sell, something like that.
You've got a bunch of Sammy Sosa rookies and Mark McGwire rookies in there.
PSA 4s, you know it.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
I just lost $9,000 in my PSA.
Hey, the thing is that I put that video out, and I'll make so much in Google AdSense that it'll make up for the $9,000 loss.
You almost have
Good to see you, Brian.
Yeah, you need to put that video out for sure.
Good to see you, Cody. Yeah, I think, what's up, global sports card investor? It's funny because it's like it kind of is hedging against losing money by putting out a video of like, I lost all my life savings on sports cards. And then you have 300,000 people that watch it. And then ironically, with the ads, you make $2,000. And it's like, hey, hold on a second. I actually got all my money back.
Yeah, the sad reality is there's a large group of people that want to watch the failure. You know, like they want to see like, oh, you're homeless now because of cards. All right.
The most liked video. And that's where I get all the likes.
Exactly.
Anyway, yeah, man, it was a lot of fun. Good to see you, Charles. Good to see you, Ryan.
Now, where were you in Mexico? Were you on like a resort, or were you in like hanging with the locals? Like in the you know?
No locals. It was at an Airbnb. It was like a 5-bedroom Airbnb, really nice house, about 10 minutes from the strip of Tulum. And it was 9 of us guys total for a men's retreat where it was a lot of experiences. It was a lot of nice dinners. If you guys saw, on my personal Instagram, I shared a lot of that. And in between all that, it's like a lot of exercises that I've learned through personal development, whether it's breathing techniques and meditation and going over relationships and feminine energy, masculine energy, like a lot of different things that if you're in that world, you know about it. If not, it might seem foreign, but good balance of like, you know, learning what can I do to be better with my time, to be a bit more in a better state of consciousness, or just higher vibration, whatever. California hippie talk, but really good stuff there.
Yeah, I gathered that you probably ate a lot of mushrooms and cried really hard.
I mean, the thing is, we could all use a good cry. You know, we could all use a good cry.
I agree, man. I mean, a lot of times I'm just by myself in a room somewhere, but you know, you get that out and you feel better.
Yeah, for sure. And Carlson, yeah, it's Ryan. He'll be on in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so. And I hope not, man. I hope not. But here's the good thing is that I saw the receipt, or I saw the total. It was $1,370. So just at $1,370 for 137 cards. And it's awesome that now looking back at $10 a card, I feel like it was a steal. So even if it was a PSA 7, a lot of these cards were $4 or $5 I bought off of Beckett Marketplace a year ago, more than a year ago. And now it's like, even if I sell it for $18 or $20, I'm like, man, it sucks, but I still just made $4. At least I didn't lose.
So you're actually pretty safe there if it was $10.
Oh no. I mean, like, of all the cards I bought and sold and were like holding, the submissions to PSA have been the best bet, because every single card going forward, and I think I have about 500 or 600, they're all $10 each or maybe $12 each. So the downside is very low.
You still have 500 out?
I have 2 orders directly through PSA. I'd have to look it up, and then 1 through the bullpen. So 137 through the bullpen right now, and then I think 3 something through 1 PSA submission, and then I forgot the number of the other PSA submission that went directly to him. So good to see you, George. Bobby B, that's right. Go Bucks. I think today was the first day of training camp, right?
I thought that
was sports or no?
No, I don't really watch sports at all. But yeah, no, I didn't think it was yet.
I thought today was the first day.
Oh, is it rookie training camp?
Maybe it's rookie. Yeah, that's what. Yeah, maybe it's rookie training camp today. That's what it is. What's up, Noah? Hobby champs. Okay, so the Nationals next week. We got to leave. You want to start there? Or you want to start with the NBA now that that's over?
Well, let's kind of brush over the NBA. I saw Brian. Brian is in the chat, the biggest Suns fan on the planet. So we'll move quick. We should move quickly.
Ooh. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I mean, honestly, I was just happy to see a new team win. I'm kind of tired of this team thing. You know, so like I'm happy seeing either a Giannis team or a Suns team win. So, I mean, I'm always good with it.
You know what? No one has pointed this out. The team that won the Super Bowl and the team that won the NBA Finals are both the Bucks. You know, I know it's Buccaneers and Bucks, but I think that's kind of cool where it's like, hey, the Bucks won again. So the Milwaukee Bucks winning reminded me of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning just by the name. But either way, I just feel bad for Suns fans that
you know who also said that is my 8-year-old daughter. Literally said the same thing.
She's a smart girl. She's a smart girl. She can piece it together. Publix cake. Oh man, I used to love Publix subs, but grocery store cake, I don't know about. Any thoughts on Giannis or the finals? I actually didn't get to watch the last couple games because of my retreat, and
he was absolutely dominant. I mean, the Suns just didn't have an answer for him, and the thing that was amazing is he was such an awful free throw shooter, really, for most of the series, especially in Phoenix. Not as bad at home, I noticed, but in the last game, I think he was 16 of 17 free throws. Like he only missed 1 in the last, and he scored 50 points.
How does that happen? You know what I mean? Like, you think that he's working with like a mindset coach or like a free throw coach or something? Because that's a drastic turnaround.
Was he at the retreat?
Dude, but you know, there are like Michael Jordan had Tim Grover, and like there's a lot of like mindset coaches too. Because I think when it comes to like, you know what I mean? Like when you think of a golfer putting or where it's like, you know, it's mostly mental. You know, it's like, all right, this is a thing where you have the form down. It's not injury based, but yet there's something going on in your head. I wonder what it was to turn around that drastically. But good for him. Honestly, when he re-signed with the Bucks, it was like, oh man, like what are you doing to yourself? You're not going to be able to draw in another superstar to Milwaukee because it's not a big market. It's not like you're going to make all these endorsements or sponsorships somewhere else. And for him to do that and actually win, I think it was pretty noble.
Yeah, he kind of threw some shade at the super teams too. I don't know if you saw that.
No.
He did throw some shade at the kind of the dream teams that are being, that are formed. And I thought that was, I thought that was kind of cool. Like if you can back it up, talk the talk if you can back it up. And he really showed out. I mean, he really showed out. And on the Suns end, the Suns played such a great series, the first 2 games. And then it's just kind of like, it was like the Bucks just made a few more plays than them. I mean, there was, even in that game 5, the Suns were up by like almost 20 points. Like in the second quarter, the Suns were smoking them in game 5. And then I don't know what happened. They just got cold. Like their shooting went cold and it just kind of fell apart. And I don't, and the Bucks, the Bucks defense was good. The Bucks are a deep team, really deep team. So I don't know. I mean, it's one of those things.
Did you sell your Devin Booker card or no?
No, and I didn't plan on it. I was just gonna hold it. I wasn't planning on selling it. But I think Booker's 24 years old. I mean, honestly, like I feel like Booker is a guy that's going to be relevant for the next 5 or 6 years at least if he's healthy. He's so young. A lot of these guys are so damn young.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, considering how old is LeBron? Like 36, 35?
Yeah, I mean, like Jordan was 27 when he won his first title, I think. I mean, what's Giannis, 27, 28, something like that? Maybe 26.
Well, they're also starting at 19 or 20 versus starting at 22, 23. Where it's like if you're starting at 19 years old and you're going to be a stud, you can play till 35. You're talking about 16 years. I mean, that's obviously for the top end, but yeah, when you really think of it that way, there's a lot of room. The one thing about throwing shade at any team is that it seems like the team that won is the two teams in the finals seem like the only teams that were remotely healthy. Like it was kind of like, all right, you're so injured, you're out. You're injured, you're out. You just got injured, you're out. It wasn't like everyone at their best competing, because then the super teams probably would have won. But when you have Giannis not injured, and who else? Chris Middleton performed well, and then
and Giannis was injured. I mean, he hyperextended his knee,
but he was in though. I'm saying he was in.
He played, but there's no way he wasn't hurting. For sure. And then he scored 50 points in the last game. I mean, he was playing as if he didn't have an injury, but there's no way his knee was not in pain. There's just no way.
Yeah.
Chris Paul, I saw Hobby Champs kind of nailed it. Chris Paul shit the bed, just wasn't clutching. And that is so true. I don't know what happened to him. Like in the finals, he fell apart. He had a bunch of turnovers, a ridiculous amount of turnovers. I mean, the Chris Paul that was in the Western Conference Finals was a totally different guy than that was in the finals. He just didn't show up in the finals. I don't know what happened there, but it was sad to see that because he's been so good. And Booker, had his moments too where he was good, but then there were times where it was like, he was settling for shots. Why wasn't he taking more threes? I mean, I don't know. It's just like, I don't know what happened. But the Bucks were deserving, though. The Bucks played hard, and they won. I mean, they were deserving.
So let's transition quickly to NBA free agency, because that's going to start, I believe, August 2nd. And I'll be putting out a video on some of the players that could be available. And there's really not too many big names. And Kawhi Leonard, I guess, is the one that's the biggest, but it's not really a free agent. He's a player option. And then Chris Paul's the other one where you're like, well, will he move teams, or because they got so close, he'll go for it again? Anything that you're excited about in free agency, whether it's trades or actual movement?
I guess it would really, I mean, look, I pull for, the Mavericks and Luka are kind of my de facto team. I'm a bandwagon Mavericks fan because I really like Luka. I'm not a longtime Mavs fan. I would like to see the Mavs add a piece or two. That would be exciting, to kind of see somebody help with Luka and maybe Porzingis gets a groove, either move Porzingis or figure out how to just add another piece or two that can help kind of accentuate those guys so they play better. And I don't know, maybe new coaching will help that. They're going to have new coaching, new management, etc. Maybe that'll help. Kind of get the team chemistry going. So I guess that's where I'm really just kind of focused on the Mavs. I'm not. And then I guess just, the other, I know Dame Lillard's talked about a lot and with Chris Paul, I don't know, like those, I just don't, I'm not paying as much attention, I guess, to that stuff, the free agency stuff. But I do think that when those dominoes move, it'll be kind of fun to watch that. How about you?
I mean, when I looked at the names, there was like very few names that stuck out. The only one that I thought of based on age was Kyle Lowry, because he's, I think, 36 or so. And so anytime a player is that age, I just think to myself, you probably just want another ring. I don't think you're looking for the max payday, because you're not really going to get too much, but maybe you could just be that final piece. So there's a comment about players wanting to go to the Bucks, and I think it's the veterans, not necessarily the young guys, but it's always the veterans that could use an extra ring, or like Chris Paul, their first ring. And if that's the case, be that final piece. Even if you're the worst starter, or even if you're the sixth man, go to that team that has a chance to win it all, because that's your legacy.
I'm kind of honestly, I'm more excited about the young up and coming players in the NBA, and even like the rookie class. Like I'm looking at like LaMelo Ball and Edwards and some of these other guys, Halliburton, getting better. And then also the new rookie class that's coming up. We're about to have another NBA draft is upcoming. The number one draft pick out of, I think it's Oklahoma State. I can't think of the guy's name. I'm drawing a blank, but he's really, really impressive. Who they anticipate being the number one overall pick. So I'm more excited about I'm ready for the next, the next generation of NBA. I don't want to talk about Chris Paul and all these guys. Like I like those guys. Like I like Chris Paul's commercials. I think they're funny.
Yeah, me too.
Them. But I'm kind of like, what these guys have had, like Paul George. Like you've been in the league long enough. I'm ready to see some young blood. Kind of mix it
again, and just because they also last for so long. You got guys from 2008, 2010, and you're like, all right, I need something fresh, versus running backs in the NFL that turn over every 4 years. So look, free agency is not till about 10 days, I think 10 days away. So the one guy I thought of based on prices was Kawhi Leonard, just because if he doesn't move anywhere, you're still having Kawhi Leonard cards at a pretty low price. If there's even speculation that he might opt out or do something, then that could be enough right there. But worst case scenario, Kawhi Leonard is going to be a playoff contender no matter where he's at, just because of him.
Yeah.
So that was one guy I'm like, I don't know if I would buy him. I wouldn't buy him when the rumors start, if rumors come, but that was one player that I'm like, there's a chance that something happens.
Yeah, no, it's true.
So, Randy, we're going to try and answer some questions. We do have a guest coming on in a few minutes. I do want to talk a bit about the National, though. This is our last show, I believe, before the National, which is next Thursday is the day I leave, I believe. Or is it the Wednesday? No, it's next Wednesday. So I don't know if we'll have a show before the National, but it's been crazy just prepping for it. What's your thoughts going in?
I'm already packed. My bags are packed. They're by the door. No.
Is that the hotel? You're actually in the hotel right now.
Yeah, we're in Chicago. We got here weeks ago. We got here weeks ago just to prep and make sure we were early. Now, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, my wife is going to be there with me. It's like kind of like date weekend away, and then it's a card show. So I know she's going to love it. She's going to love this. This weekend away at this giant card show.
Has she been to a card show before?
No.
Oh man, okay.
But she would be considered an OG because she used to collect soccer stickers in Italy when she was a kid, and they were Panini soccer stickers. I was talking to her a couple years ago, and she was like, Panini is the main company. Is that the same sticker company? So she's technically an OG in the sticker card collecting Panini world. So
there's a chance she had all these Lionel Messi and Ronaldo stickers that she just kind of threw on her bicycle or something.
Probably Buffon and all these. Yeah. She blew it for us. I remind her of that every day. Where's the
never sticker? Good enough.
Whoa, I didn't do the laundry. Well, where's the soccer stickers from the 80s?
Oh, that's it. That's your card. Play the soccer sticker card every time.
That's how I end every fight.
Okay. So that would be great if Damian Lillard switches teams for his sake. I would love to see him on an actual contender versus him just holding all the weight on his shoulders. In terms of going in, though, I mean, you said you wanted to stock up, as in have enough money to be able to buy things. Anything that you're going to be looking for or interested in?
Yeah, I know. So here's my problem: is I've been trying to come up with a strategy for weeks on this. And I've just been going back and forth on what I want to do. I think I'm actually going to bring some cards with me, which I wasn't planning to do that. But just hearing about all the trade nights and all this stuff, I'm like, man, I should probably just bring some cards so that I can at least try to participate, even if I don't end up trading anything. It would still be kind of cool to be in the mix, just to kind of I've got these cards, and I'll bring some. I won't bring real common stuff. I'll bring some stuff that's kind of out of the blue, and see what happens. So, I'm not planning to spend huge money. I'm thinking $500, maybe $750. And not to say that I will spend it if there's no deals, and there's no deals, but I I just have a hard time thinking I'm going to walk through that show for 3 days and not spend any money, or like buy a card off of eBay when I'm at a card show, like somebody else did.
That's funny, Larry. Dude, here's the thing. I don't know, man. It's weird because I'm holding so much football right now. I'm still waiting for the football market to go up to the point where I'd want to sell. I was hoping that by next week, the football market would have been hot enough to the point where I'd be good selling because I bought so long ago. And right now I'd have to look at what the values are. I think a lot of the cards are 20% above what I paid or 30%, but it's something where I don't know if I'd want to sell it online with a margin like that based on fees and whatnot, but I might just hold out until August. But the point is that I have so much of inventory for football that I'm not really looking to buy more until I move my football stuff. And now with all these cards coming back from PSA, I got to look through there and see what I have. The other thing is that I'd probably be looking to sell versus trade. Maybe trade. I'd like to sell some as well. And since we don't have a table, it's kind of weird to just roam around with 100 cards to sell. Because if you have a table, it's easy. Here's my business. Come up to me. It's very simple. If we're roaming around, I don't even know how to approach that. But
I think dealers are going to be busy. I mean, and think about all the people that are going to bring cases that are going to be, I mean, the dealers are going to be so, my take is I think dealers are going to be so busy because there's going to be so many people trying to sell or trade or, it's not going to be just a boatload of cash only buyers. Like it's going to be like, I'm envisioning it being people have cards they're looking to trade, sell, and then they have some cash to add on to those deals. That seems to be what's been going on, and look, that's something that happens at every card show, but I think that's going to be the case at this show. Dealers are going to be so busy with that. I can't even imagine having a table.
Yeah, for sure. And wait, what was your video? I can't keep up with all your videos. So give me a rundown. Yeah. Give us all a rundown like in 30 seconds so we don't have to watch it.
Yeah, I've got a hard stop at 10 for I've got a premiere starting. So just kidding. I have premieres at 10, 11, and midnight for anyone. Yeah. No, I just did a quick video just basically saying that my strategy is I don't have a complete strategy.
Sounds like a horrible video.
It was really good.
Sounds like a waste of time. Okay.
So your strategy is you're not going to buy anything for the second show in a row.
I bought those Lonzo Ball cards as a gag gift. That's what I actually bought at the show. Look, I mean, here's the thing. In a couple of videos ago, I said I want to start doing breaks for charity, right? I've actually gotten a couple companies and breakers that I'm talking with right now to do it. In terms of opportunity, and from my angle, it's the best opportunity for me is the people that I meet, the companies, the representatives. I know CompC will be there, and Beckett, and eBay, and StarStock, and StockX, and Fanatics, and 50 other companies. From my perspective, me meeting those people and talking to them is the best investment I can make from the brand standpoint. And then meeting you guys is going to be the best investment for enjoyment, but also to hopefully strengthen the connection we have. But pretty much any card that I want to buy based on my budget right now, I can buy on eBay or here in LA. Just, you know what I mean? I'm not looking at like that rare, one of one, whatever card that only appears at the National. If that was the case, then that's what I'd be doing. But that's not my priorities right now.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, my number one priority is hanging out with people and networking. Really, cards is probably third, fourth on the list. But yeah, it's going to be more of just networking and hanging out.
Awesome. Okay, well, let's transition. Let's bring on our guest because he's been waiting there patiently for the last 30 minutes or so. He is the founder of GemRate. This is a company he started, which is based on looking at the pop report growth from PSA and seeing what exact cards are coming back and the grades that they're coming back from or at, so that we can at least see what we don't want to buy, or understand that, hey, if we buy a card, there might be 300 of that card in that grade coming back in the next couple months. thus, we want to wait for that supply to be revealed instead of overpaying. So I thought it was a very cool concept. I found him from Card Porn's post, or Card Porn on Instagram. So definitely follow them. They're one of the top Instagrammers. And then I contacted him, and then here he is all of a sudden. Ryan, what's up?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
What's
Thanks
up,
for
man?
coming on, man. So explain to everyone who you are.
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, GemRate sort of, like you said, got discovered by Card Porn, which is awesome. That was just a little bit of a fluke. I'd been publishing the data just a couple months just to sort of like get a little bit of practice getting it out there and getting it in front of a few people. But I've been working on GemRate since the beginning of the year. And I'm one of these guys that got back in the hobby last summer. And, I was basically just solving my own problem. Population reports, everybody knows, are pretty hard to make use of across all the different sites. And but it's obviously such an important data set. And so I just started digging in. I was trying to do it from sort of like two standpoints. Of one, just understanding like what are cards that are sort of, low pop and sort of under discovered, or sort of, just people aren't paying attention to. And then also for value, maximizing the value of my collection. So thinking about, where should I grade my cards essentially? So thinking about gem rates, thinking about, what are there certain cards that are more condition sensitive, all that different stuff. So anyways, I was really thinking about it through like the broader landscape of grading, not specifically PSA. And I just started capturing this data on a daily basis. And then, PSA was already, such a focal point of the hobby, but then obviously in March when they announced that they were going to shut things down, everybody became increasingly concerned with the backlog. So I've just been storing this data and trying to make sense of it. And that's been my focus. And so now I've built a software tool, which I haven't really talked too much about. But it's basically like PSA's pop report on steroids, or at least that's the goal. It doesn't totally deliver on that today, which is partially why this was like a report that was getting me accustomed to sort of publishing what I can do with this data, and figuring out where there's holes in it and things I still want to build out in the future. But ultimately, it was just solving my own problem. I wanted to understand the population data better. I wanted to understand scarcity better. Wanted to maximize the value of my collection. So I've just been heads down on that. And then, very fortunate to be picked up by a lot of people, just because obviously the PSA backlog is such a concern in the hobby. So I've been very focused on that the last, 6 months. And then the last three weeks really has just been sort of taking a lot of feedback. I'm very like open and receptive to feedback, wanting to sort of deliver what's best for the hobby as it relates to things that are useful. And so just being very open-minded. So that's sort of the gist of GemRate at this stage.
Okay, this sounds like a lot of work. I mean, because I asked you like which cards do you follow, and I was thinking like, I don't know, 50 cards, 100 cards, and you said like all of them.
It's all of them, which is different, and which is an angle I wanted to take. I wanted to have the maximum optionality with this tool, meaning like if there's a obscure card that you wanted to know about, I wanted to be able to explain to you the history of it, at least the last 6 months, and obviously going forward, hopefully. But it's all, PSA has over 1.5 million unique cards in its database. And so I've been tracking every one of those over the last 6 months. And so it is a lot of work. I mean, from a career standpoint, I was doing a lot of startup work and I do a lot of data engineering work. And so it was a fun challenge to sort of think about like, hey, this data is interesting, not that easy to sort of capture. How can I make sense of it? And so it was a bit of just a little, it's truly a hobby for me of just like, how do I take advantage of this? And then I just realized that nobody really has it on their radar from a macro standpoint. Some of these great collection tools are thinking about it through the lens of a card, but I wanted to understand it through the lens of sets and through the lens of players and all the different angles. So that's been my focus. So it was a lot of work, but totally worth it in the sense of, I just think it's super valuable. I think, PSA eventually will offer hopefully some of these capabilities, but, in the meantime, I'm hoping that GemRate can bridge that gap.
So, all right. So let me ask, how does this help the average collector or investor? I mean, like, I think I have the gist of it, but how would you explain if I'm out there, how does looking at your data and I mean, like, to my knowledge, you don't have like a paid program or anything out yet. It's just kind of like things you're piecing together, it's just sharing your information. So if I'm an average collector or investor, why should I look at GemRate's charts and see what's going on?
Yeah, I mean, outside of the report I put out there, which was sort of like the state of the hobby and just what's coming and how that's going to impact pricing, which I think is like the near-term focus where people are finding value of just like, oh crap, like what's about to get hit and where sort of, is this junk slab era real and what's going to be sort of decimated as a part of that pricing wise. From a longer term perspective, it's just trying to integrate this information into people's buying experiences. Really, I want it to be available when I'm on the different marketplaces, and I want to know, hey, is this random card I'm seeing, is this a low pop card that's pretty rare, and I'm just happen to stumble upon it when nobody else's searches are capturing it, or is this one of 25,000 and it's not really that valuable at the end of the day? And so just think about like, where do I want to focus my attention? Where is there maybe worth a premium? Where are you finding hidden gems in the hobby? And then additionally, it's sort of like layering onto that again, like the scarcity that the hobby sort of like unintentionally creates around like, condition sensitive cards. Or for example, I was using this, try to think about like Prism. Everybody was talking about how Prism base is going to be so overprinted and there's just gonna be too many of these cards out there to have any value in the long run. So I started looking at it through the lens of like, what parallels are appealing from the standpoint of like, there's a lot of parallels these days that aren't numbered, right? And so which ones actually could be scarce? So thinking about population print runs, and also thinking about which ones more naturally like lend themselves to scarcity from, for the Hyper, for example, was one of the ones that early focus of mine from Prism, because it grades horribly. It's like a 10 to 15% gem rate historically. And so just thinking about like, does that get its value, the correct value in the hobby? So short answer is just understanding scarcity when you're shopping for cards or looking to add to your collection, whether that's trading or buying. And then, the long run is sort of like the macro environment, or sort of the big picture is like the macro environment.
Gotcha. Dustin, if you have any thoughts besides just a gentle nod, please go forward. After this, though, I came out with a video recently on demand, but the one before was supply. And what makes cards so incredibly difficult compared to other commodities or other types of investments is that the supply is not really known on a lot of these cards, because we don't know what amount was actually printed, and we don't know how many of them are in existence in a PSA 10 or about to be a PSA 10 or BGS 95 or whatever else. And so like, I feel like I made a lot of good investments at the time based on the pop report, but then, and especially 2018, 2019 rookies, and then 2020 for sure, but 2019 rookies, I'm looking at the pop report just grow month after month, thinking that this was a good card at a good price. And it was, except now there's twice as many in existence as 7 months ago, and there could be 4 times in existence in the next 6 months or year. And just by default, that should lower the price unless a way more money floods the market and it keeps where it's at. But it was something that I was drawn to, because it's like, you can get the player right, you can get the card right, you can get the grade right. But if you don't get how many of them actually exist, that could be the one thing that kind of screws you over.
Yeah, I think it's really critical. I mean, supply, there's so many levels of supply, like what you said. I mean, how many were printed, how many are 10s, how many are 9s? And even that is a moving target, and that's basically essentially what you're tracking, with this tool, which I like the one, that one screenshot that you had showed where it shows, the by player, like which player is getting the most cards graded coming out, like Michael Jordan is number 1, but that gives you kind of a really nice idea of what's coming out of there, because we don't really know that. And I think that's what everyone's kind of looking at. You've got millions of cards sitting in the backlog, and everybody outside of like numbered cards is wondering like, all right, we hear there's a lot of ultra modern, but how much can there really be? Like, are there millions of ultra modern cards? I mean, there's got to be a variety of stuff there. There's got to be some vintage. There's got to be some 80s stuff. There's, 90s, whatever. So yeah, I think it's really valuable what you're doing. I like it.
So here's the thing. So for one, from everything you found, I want to know, what are some trends or some things that you've noticed, just like without going into the deep numbers, but with you extracting some patterns from all the numbers, what are some things that you've found that the average person that doesn't want to go too deep into it can at least take away and hopefully be able to make a bit smarter of a decision about, like, based on what you've seen so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I was trying to highlight in the June report, which again, I went into this very much just trying to understand, like, hey, how do I, is my data corrected to, what is it telling me? And the Jordan thing really was interesting, because I was like, oh, that was not what I was expecting to see. And some great people quickly said that, oh, there was a promotion back in PSA last spring or early summer. That's why everybody was sending in their Jordans. And I'm like, oh, that makes sense. And then you sort of layer on top of that, every other card from the 90s was being sent in great volume. And it was super interesting, because it was like, okay, you can kind of get a sense of where PSA is at in their backlog. And they even recently updated a statistic on their site to say that of the submissions they're sitting on, or the cards in their submissions, 85% are of the value or bulk-oriented submissions, and only 15% are of more of the premium subs. Where I think that's interesting is, everybody's been talking about Zion and Ja and all these overprinted cards from the current era. And certainly that exists, but I think people lost sight of just how many cards people were getting in their basement and in these binders and throwing out there and grading because it was cheap, right? And so, that has downstream implications of this backlog is, consistent of a lot of those cards, but that impacts a lot of modern cards too. And, this liquidity crunch that we're in right now is very much fueled by that. I think what people underestimate, and sort of like what this tool has taught me from like a macro standpoint, is like, okay, this is a very real backlog, very material, and they're not going to work through it anytime soon. I mean, Ken Golden on a recent interview, I don't think it was by accident, said it's a few years backlog, and I don't think that was an accident that number was mentioned. And I think people were pretty unrealistic to think that like service levels are going to open up any degree that people had hoped come July 1st when that happened, and not a surprise they didn't. What I think people are missing now is the volume of cards people are sitting on, and underestimate what that means. For example, there were 400,000 prisms just graded by PSA last year, 2019 prisms. There have only been a few thousand that have been graded this year. 200 plus thousand of those are base, so half of those are base. If you assume people are just different this year with how they behave, and maybe base doesn't get graded at the same rate, there's still a couple 100,000 prisms out there that are, highly capable of being graded by people today. And those are going to flood into the system. And that's just one set of many that Panini holds. And so I think people are underestimating just like why they can't open the doors again. There's just going to be a flood and a rush of cards that come back in. And so, this is a many year sort of situation that we're in, which is super interesting. What that means from a card standpoint, I'm trying to figure out, what do you do in the meantime? And so for me, for example, I've just shifted away from basketball a lot because there's just a lot of uncertainty there. There's a lot of volatility, and you're not going to get your cards back in a timely fashion. The multiples in basketball got a little out of control, whereas with other sports, they weren't sort of, as extreme. So that's like a very high level thing. From a granular thing, I love the player thing. I jump in there all the time. When somebody mentions a player, I jump into the player view on GemRate. I just learn quickly about like, hey, what are the most graded cards, or what are unique cards for LeBron, or what about Giannis, or what about Durant, or what about, somebody obscure. Middleton is a good one. Middleton has nothing graded. You can jump in my tool, learn that really quickly. And it's not a surprise, but there's nothing. And that is just so interesting to think about, like, maybe he's underappreciated, but also it's just like, how underappreciated is he? And you could tell very quickly looking at those, that player view, that nobody cared about him. So anyways, there's just like a lot of interesting things that I learned from it personally.
So real quick, is this an email newsletter? Is this a downloadable report? Is this something that, I know you said June you had an update. So is this every month you update all the cards, or how does this work exactly?
Yeah, so the cards get updated every day. I hope to have a dashboard available on the site sometime in the near future where you can go and literally just say, like, here's the landscape as it relates to like this given week, or the current week, the current month, just to understand trends. I see part of the reason with this, part of the goal with this, I don't want to be the one who has to analyze all this data. It's just too much. The data's too big. The data set's too big. So what I want to do is make it available, and hopefully, hopefully others can make sense of it and bring that to the market and help people understand it. People already started to do that, which I've been very excited about. How I'm distributing it right now is Instagram, just because that's where a lot of the collectors are. And I wanted just to integrate it into where people are today. It'll be an email. There'll be other formats for it, but right now it's primarily, I'm just distributing on Instagram because it's where a lot of people are paying attention to it.
Gotcha.
Do you have plans for other ways to report, or, kind of other, because you have it down by player, you have kind of different types of reporting. How do you see kind of the tool maybe, adding new features, or how do you kind of see it going? And then will there be maybe a paid option down the line, or have you thought about any of that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely thought about it. So right now I'm trying to just put different spins on the data. So for example, there's a way to pivot the data so you can look at sets by different parallels. So just like, instead of looking at, Zion silvers, I want to look at all silvers and look at it through that lens. I want to look at all different parallels. There's so many different parallels these days that, that's an important view. I want to be able to add a view where you can just look at rookies versus veterans. One of the biggest pain points I had was I copied and pasted like 2018, 2019, 2017 Prism in spreadsheets all the time. Like, that's so annoying. Why can't I just see the different years combined? And so combining different years, combining different sets is something that's available today in limited form. And then it's just, again, there's sort of like unique custom reports that I want to run. So one set I'm personally collecting is earlier kabooms. Everybody's paying attention to the current kabooms. I'm looking at the earlier ones. So like I have a custom report on there that you can see on the site, which is just like all the kabooms of all time graded by PSA. That's sort of like the near term. How I'm thinking about sort of like, just adding value to the hobby and potentially monetizing this is, I'm not fooling myself into believing everybody in the hobby is going to go to this site. I don't want it to be that. I don't think there's, it's just, I don't want to build that. I think there's an opportunity for that. I think there's like a pro plan that potentially I could build that for, which is somebody like myself, I think would use, but I just don't know that that's appealing to the broader hobby. Is it truly sustainable business in the long run? So I've mentioned this a couple of times, but integration is a big thing for me. So trying to incorporate this data into where people are collecting is much more important to me. So making the data available, you can imagine a world where you're hovering eBay or you're on MySlabs or something like that, and that data is injected into where you're shopping. Or if you manage your collection in Google Sheets and things like that, that's where I want this data to live as well. And so there's sort of like a broader consumer application from that standpoint. And then in general, this data set, like I said, is really valuable. And so there's an opportunity, I think, for people to have access to this data, just to take a different look at it than I am, sort of just having like a free run at it. And so I think there's interesting ways from that standpoint. And then obviously there's a lot of tooling in this space. And so providing this data, those tools, so they don't have to try to solve the same problem I just did, which was annoying. So making that data available so it's in the tools where people are today. So, the market movers, the card ladders, they're already thinking about it, but it's that those are examples of like tools that I wish or would want to have some of this data as well.
It would be cool if there was like a supply demand score on a card, based on like if it was moving, if it was a base rookie card where you just see a lot of new ones every month hitting, maybe it's a D grade compared to, something lower pop as an A or a B or something. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out. But yeah, I agree. If there was a way to integrate it, it'd be great.
Yeah, I mean, integrate. And we had a good discussion a couple of weeks ago. And I mean, look, for me, if I like a card, if I like a player, but I'm looking at it from an investment standpoint, I'd love for a little warning to pop up that says this card's pop has grown 80% over the last 2 months. And based on other patterns, it'll probably continue for the next 3 months because the data gets that advanced. So I know that, okay, hold on. Maybe I'm okay with the price knowing all this, or maybe I want to wait a couple more months for more of the pop to fill out. I'd also imagine that this is going to be very important for the next probably 2 years. And then once they're fully caught up with the old stuff and it's mostly just new ripped product, it'll be a bit more, we'll understand things a bit better. But right now it's just like such a crazy unknown. I saw this comment here by Sports Card Portfolio. How do you do all this? Like, are you on PSA's pop report website entering every single number of every card? Because that doesn't sound like it would make sense. But like, what are you doing here? You got like bots running everywhere, or what?
It's sort of like that. I mean, it was either that or the sneaker bot world, which has been played out. No, I never considered that. But no, I mean, it's a lot of programs. It's a lot of like engineering work that I've been doing personally, just for projects from startups. And so I just found a different application for it. It was a lot of work, and PSA, to my understanding, is okay with what I'm doing, which is good. And I think they appreciate there being the transparency. I think one of the things I was very sort of like keen on or paying a lot of attention to was like, I've listened to every Nat Turner interview and every, earnings call prior to that before the company was acquired. And, this has not been something that's been a focus. They have way too many other things that they're focused on. And so I found there to be an opportunity to just take this data and make better use of it. And so I think they'll get there, but I think there's also things that I could do from like a collective grading picture as well if I wanted to. But yeah, so it's a lot of programming work. The short answer, it's been months worth of effort to pull that out.
I know it would probably take time to figure this out, and you'd have to get kind of each company on board, but it would be amazing to be able to have one place where you've got the PSA, BGS, SGC numbers kind of compiled. Because that's another thing. We focus so heavily on PSA graded cards, but there's a lot of other graded cards out there, and that's actually, that's what Ziggy mentions here. And I know you'd have to kind of work with each company. It might be easier said than done in the short run, but in the long run, that would be extremely valuable.
Yeah, I mean, that I agree. My original goal was a total pop. That was the thing I was thinking of going to market with, was here's sort of, because I do think it's like, it's beneficial for the hobby to pretend scarcity is or there's more, scarcity exists to a larger degree than it does, which is, why people, it's part laziness and it's part beneficial, again, to make it seem like there's fewer cards available. But the reality is there's a ton of these cards available when you combine pops, or under a lot of circumstances at least. So yeah, that was my goal. And it also just speaks to the history a lot, and it'll speak to the future too, to some degree, of like where people are shifting their, everybody's talking about who's picking up the slack here. And, I'd love to be able to answer that with more clarity, and I can't yet, but that's sort of a vision for the future of, where is this, this opportunity the PSA is passing on going to? Is it going to some of these emerging companies? Is it going to SGC? What's going on with BGS? So anyways, that is a big picture view that I've taken, and I'd like to get there, but no, it's not. That's not something that I can deliver on in the very near future yet.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So I was going to ask, like, look, you've been doing this for months and months. You're seeing this data all over. What are some things that you're applying for yourself? I want to know who you're collecting, who you're investing in, but also, like, based on the data, man, I am staying away from this because the data is just like saying it's flooding from PSA, or I really like this card, but I'm going to wait another 3 months or 6 months until this cools down.
Yeah, I mean, personally for me, I've been trying to understand, again, within like the modern sets parallels. I think that's just, there's so many question marks around like, what is this overprinting doing there? And what's the opportunity within that, especially when there are so many non-numbered cards. I mean, the other thing I had done, this is just like a short anecdote and then I'll move past it, but like, I was trying to understand how many numbered Zions are there? Just base Zions. And there's 20,000 of them. Granted, 7,500 of them come from Chronicles. So it's like that created its own sort of like mini problem within the hobby. But, there's a ton of those. And so it's like beyond that, then what does it look like from a parallel standpoint? I personally was curious about inserts. I'm trying to reverse engineer a lot of, just what happened in the 90s. Why did people care? Like what are the things that people really took to, 5-6 years later? A lot of these cards that people care about now that are, the grails were overlooked early on. And so I'm just trying to understand, like, I listened to a lot of old podcasts, a lot of old interviews from like, 5, 7, 10 years ago, just trying to understand like what's the essence of this and sort of like how do we get here. And so for me, I'm looking at inserts a lot. So, there's been a lot of conversation around like PSAs grading harder. And, there's, the other part of that is people are for sure more lenient or more relaxed with what they're submitting. Manufacturers are doing a poorer job of quality control, but there's definitely like corners of this hobby where they're grading harder. Like I mentioned Kaboom earlier. There's some stuff that I've seen there. There's a lot of inserts. There's a lot of inserts that are, case hits, and you look at the pop reports and sort of how the dynamic has changed there, and they're certainly giving those a harder look. Like it's maybe not something that is a mandate, but you can definitely tell that standards have been toughened up there. I think that's a good thing. I do think that's a challenge when people weren't aware of that when they submitted cards. I think that presents a problem, but I do think, them being tougher is not necessarily a bad thing in the long run.
I have a question for you, and you might not have the answer necessarily, but there's always kind of, and I know you've heard this, is, a lot of people will say, well, we're not in a junk wax era again. Like, it's not like the 90s when they used to print. And, none of us really know, because none of us really know what the print runs are today. But just kind of based on some of the data that you've looked at as far as stuff coming back and whatever, do you think that, it's somewhat comparable or it's approaching it? If you were speculating on it, just based on all the parallels, because like if, I used to collect 89 Pro Set football. You could find packs of that on like every street, every gas station corner, you could find packs of it. So I know they printed a lot of it, but there were no parallels really. There wasn't so many different sets, not near as many produced.
Totally.
What are your kind of thoughts with that? Do you think that's kind of a conversation that's, is it not comparable? Do you think it might be comparable? Do you have any, point of view on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's something I want to understand better. There's a lot of work to be done still on sort of like what that junk wax era really looked like. And, I'm sure it's been written about a ton, and I'm trying to understand that, with the modern age. I definitely think we're there, though. I definitely think there's a lot of, parallels between that. Pun not intended. But yes, I mean, like we're overprinting. I think everybody's aware of it. I just think there's a lot of smoke and mirrors. I mean, Panini has so many different sets out there. Topps has done the same thing. And then you layer on hybrid and all these different combinations. For sure, they're just doing it differently. So that's why I think that's good that the hobby has been like, okay, base, stop putting focus on that, even though that's a commodity and there was a purpose for it. The liquidity was important, and really focus in on things that you care about. And then ultimately, I think it is, even you hear some of the veterans of the hobby talk about it, but it's like, the ultimate, and I've heard you guys talk about this a lot too, which is awesome, which is like, people need to care about these cards 5-10 years from now. There has to be a demand to own these cards somewhere, right? And there's not most of these things will fall flat. There won't be landing spots for a lot of these cards. And so anyways, we're certainly there in a different way. But I think there's better opportunity to understand where the value is. So I think the dynamic is different, but there's a lot of parallels between what we saw in the 90s.
Yeah, one thought I had with parallels is that, look, a card could be scarce and you can still overpay for it, right? Just because it's numbered doesn't mean it's a great buy. If you're paying $3,000 for a numbered card, you could still be paying $1,000 more than you should. But one thought I had in terms of grading, which I threw in one of my latest videos, was that if I pull a Zion Silver from a pack, I'm probably not adding it to the bulk service based on the price that it's worth right then and there. So I'm wondering if there's anything in the data you've seen that shows that the rarer cards are getting filled out quicker because people are paying a premium to get them graded, because that's what the average person would have done maybe before this latest shutdown when it was $50 or $100. So I'm, at least, even if there's no data, I have a theory that those cards, I have a bit more faith in the pop report being there, because that shouldn't have been a card that you would have waited 8 months or a year to get back. It would have been worth upgrading. Is there anything you see or any input there?
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right. I think I didn't speak to it a lot in the June report, but that was sort of a way of looking at that, which was like, oh, okay, this backlog is actually producing a lot of older 90s cards. And therefore, what it's not is what everybody's talking about. It's not all these ultra modern cards. And so I think that's super important. And that's why I showed that player view. Some of these guys everybody talks about, Zion, Jazz, their activity was down. And, to continue to trend that way, I think, over the next few months. So very much so. I think that's definitely the case. I'm looking at, so what I'm planning to do is release sort of a update ahead of the national. There's no sense in me releasing a report on August 1st when everybody is going to be engaging in all this activity over the next week and a half. So I'm going to release an update on Monday just to sort of give everybody some insight into what's been happening. And certainly that's the case. I think you see that there is a ton of baseball that's now showing up from people's old collections and things like that. But it's not, yes, a lot of these cards that people have been talking about, they were front loaded because they were worth it. And one of the things, for example, that you're seeing now is you're seeing a lot more Jazz than Zion come up. Not a lot, but single digit percentages more Jazz. And I think people might be surprised by that, because you had you would think twice about Jazz. You'd never think twice about submitting a Zion. And so, you see little nuances like that where there's certainly, I think where people were really nervous, it's not as bad. It might have been a little exaggerated as far as what could happen in the future as it relates to the grading activity for some of these big named cards that people were sending in express. So certainly that's the case. The magnitude of that is still very TBD. I'm still trying to understand that.
Well, what do you think is going to happen? Well, for one, I wanted to ask, in terms of PSA, do you think they're going to open up a grading service that's back at $20 a card, $50 a card? Because I think Dustin and I kind of disagree on this. We have different competing arguments. I want to see what you think based on the numbers and what just your perspective there. And then also, because it's shut down right now, unless you're submitting pretty high cards, do you think there's going to be do you think the charts are going to be really thrown off at a certain point, as in I guess in 8 months time, 10 months time, when it's obvious that those services were shut down, everything just ceases? How does that play into your data with the PSA being shut down?
Yeah, I do think that they will. I mean, like I said, I listened to a lot of their interviews. I think they're collectors at their core, and so sets are super important to them. And sets are, you hear a lot about the set registry when you hear Nat Turner talk, and so that's super important to them. And that's definitely going to be a focus. And being able to grade lower end cards is a big part of that. So I do think they'll do that. I do think they'll do that with a ton of consideration around what that looks like. I don't know if that means a queue system or what, but I do think it'll be fairly priced. I do think that'll be back sometime in the next, 6 to 9 months. But,
so Dustin's wrong. So you think Dustin is completely wrong? I'm completely
I did
right.
Hear that, and I didn't want to be explicit with that. But
let's just cut to it.
Look, I personally think it's a challenge. I think, you watch the news, they're trying to do a lot at once. And I think that's a concern from a hobby standpoint of, they have a major backlog problem, and the hobby is rightfully concerned about that, why they're expanding to a lot of other verticals or adjacent markets. But I do think that they're aware that they can't alienate, their core collectors. So I think they'll do something. I just don't think it'll be to the magnitude that the hobby will want. So I don't think let's put it this way. I think they'll do it, but I don't think it'll be super well received at the start.
Gotcha. Dustin, you're going to have to take it from here
Brett just
because AP, I've had to use the restroom for the last 15 minutes. I've just been very engaged in this conversation. So I'm going to remove myself. Guys, please don't leave. I know it's just Dustin's going to have to take it from here, and it's going to be dreadful, but I promise you I'll be back soon.
This is what always happens, man. Like, I just have to run the show. You know, it's embarrassing. This guy goes to Mexico for 10 days, you know, can't even put a show together, but here we are.
Yeah, Tulum will do that to you.
Well, this is exciting. So, I mean, what are kind of your next steps? Are you just kind of taking it as it comes, or do you have, plans in place to expand on kind of what you're doing currently, or is it more casual?
I'm trying to be opportunistic in the sense of, I want to do what's right from the hobby standpoint here. And so I'm just trying to, my goal was to go to the national and just sort of like take it in. And now I have a lot more meetings there, which is great. I'm excited about that. I think that's going to be a really fun sort of like shift for me. And I just want to be receptive. I want to, again, this data is super valuable. I can't use it to the degree that it should be used. I can't analyze it. I can't surface insight. And so I want it to be distributed for sure. So that's certainly a goal of mine. And then I do think there are wins that can be from an integration standpoint that can be implemented in the next month or two. So those are focus points for me, trying to solve, answer the supply questions that a lot of people have. But I really do want this to be not only focused on the near term, turmoil that we're in from a hobby standpoint. And I really want to think big picture of I want to know what cool cards exist, and I want to know to what degree are they, out there. Right. So that's the big picture thing I want to solve for. So it's trying to find a balance of that. And I'm showcasing a lot of this. There are people coming to the site today, which I'm really happy with. I hope more people do come to it, because that's what I ultimately built it for, is this tool. I don't want to be the reporting, junkie here. I'll do it to showcase the potential for this, but I hope people find a lot of usefulness out of it. So that's sort of my goal. And like I said, I'm super receptive to feedback. That's sort of my MO, is I want to adapt to what people are interested in. And so I'm pretty open. I don't have a set roadmap. I do have some things over the next 2 months I want to get out there. And I just want to make I'm undergoing design refresh and stuff like that, so my site doesn't look like it's from 1990. But there are a lot of things I want to accomplish, and I'm just trying to prioritize right now.
What's the best place for people to go to? Is it Instagram first, or is it your website?
I would suggest, Instagram follow for sure, because I'm going to be putting out that report over the next few days, and I think people will want to see that, or at least, give it a scan. And then ultimately, I hope people do check out the site. Like I said, I think a lot of people, not a lot, but enough people are going there today and finding value that I'm excited about it. It's validating that there are more people like myself that are really wanting to dig into these pop reports and understand the nuance of them. So, and like I said, I want to be, adaptive here. And so to the degree people will provide feedback, that's awesome. So yeah.
And this is really kind of it's the big knock on collectibles, is not really understanding the supply side. And yeah, I think it's just as important. If you're looking at a price on a card, I mean, this data is so critical, because, it works. It all works together. I mean, the amount of supply that comes back from PSA or BGS or wherever that then hits the market the next week or month or year is going to impact those prices. It's not everything, but it is a big piece of it, though. I mean, obviously you have the demand side that is always moving, but man, that's such a critical component.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of applications for it, at the end of the day. And that's, again, why I just want to sort of service the industry in a bunch of different ways, and focus right now on, again, sort of just macro stuff. And then hopefully people, again, jump in and get into the really nuanced stuff. There's I don't know. There's just so much to do with this data. Again, it's just it's a fun data set, obviously.
So if you're just an average person and you just want to make better decisions, what's the best way to use your data? As in, I'm interested in a Patrick Mahomes card, but I'd like to just have a better idea of the grades out there for this card and for the pop report. What's the best way to go about using the data?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think we talked about this briefly, Brad, before, but it's this data set alone isn't going to answer the question for you, because you need pricing to round out the thinking there for sure. So a lot of times you start off with pricing and you work to the supply side. I find the supply side is an interesting starting point too, to understand the industry. But the short answer is I want this to be however you sort of discover cards. So that's why I've been answering questions on Instagram. So if you're on there and you're hey, what is a trend with The 1986 Jordan. Bad example because that's not accessible. But like, let's again say like the 2018 Lucas Silver. Just what is the great distribution trends? How's that moving? How's it moving relative to price? I'd like to be able to answer that. Again, maybe that's not the average consumer. The short answer is I want this to be integrated though. I want it to be something that's accessible via Instagram where you're collecting. I want this to be something available where you shop. Again, overlaid. So again, when you're looking, you're like, oh wow, this auction's ending in the next 10 minutes. I don't have time to go try to navigate a website on PSA to figure this out. I just want it to be available there to be like, okay, there's only 5 of these exist. It's like feel confident bidding. And so that's like the vision is sort of like have it integrated enough where people are able to access this where they're already collecting.
I'm getting ripped in the comments about my camera. I'm actually using a BlackBerry for the stream. Toa said I'm using a Samsung Razr.
And that was a cool phone. Now, don't give Dustin that much credit. I thought it was funny.
Honestly, you should see Brad when he doesn't have that camera thing rocking.
Look at this. Not a single pore or wrinkle on my forehead.
And Snow White, where all the lines start showing up. Yeah, Brad's he's actually 79 years old.
Yeah. That's why I'm kind of nervous about showing up in person at the National. Yeah. I'm only going to disappoint. They're gonna be like, oh my God, you're like 4'6" and you look like you're 65 years old.
Brad, are you wearing blush? Like, what's that? Do you have something on your?
Hey, one thing I do want to say, since you guys have touched
oh my God.
Literally, as you said that, my camera died. And now I usually keep a piece of tape over the lens. Yeah. Like, look at night and day difference. Dude. But it's a bit blurry because I usually keep a piece of tape over because I don't know what Bill Gates or Zuckerberg or whoever's going to film me doing if I'm picking my nose here. So I usually keep a piece of tape over. So now it's a bit blurry from the little piece, tape side, the stickiness or whatever, because I peeled it off. But yeah, my camera died again right as you said that. So
yikes.
Well, one of the things I just wanted to mention too, since you guys have touched on a couple of times, is like how to make this useful for the average consumer. And that's where I want people to provide a lot of feedback on that. I've mentioned it a bunch of times, but it's like if people want to reach out to me, Instagram's a good place to reach me, direct message. I've been getting a lot of really good feedback there. Ryan@gemrate.com is a good way. But I want to, again, I have the data available and I want to make it available to others in a way they'll use it. So I don't have all these predetermined ways to deliver it. I have ways that I think will be interesting to a lot of people, but I'm also, early in this process. And so I want to be really receptive to how people are thinking about it. So anyways, super open to feedback and again, like very receptive to that. So definitely reach out if you have ideas.
Awesome. And I mean, I'm sure it's going to evolve all the time. Every single piece that we can piece together in this puzzle just helps us become a bit smarter and be one step ahead. But I mean, like what we've learned in the last year and a half is that there is just so much at play. It's insane, right? So much on the supply side, the demand side, and every single week there's something breaking in the news of something going on that like shifts grading or shifts perception or grades, whatever. And that's outside of the player or the sport. So if we could at least control the supply side or have a better idea of the supply side, then at least we can do that because the demand side of the equation of just this player performs, underperforms, this set is hot, this set is down, this time of year, all these different things, that's a whole other beast. So any final questions, Dustin?
No, man, you're doing the Lord's work. It's awesome. I mean, and I was late to the party on this. Brad had brought this to my attention here recently over the last couple of weeks. So I'm kind of getting up to speed on it, but it's great. So if you decide to go paid route or something or whatever, GD always coming in with something. And next it'll be the what is it? The
grazing cow.
The grazing cow thing will be coming on. Now when he comments on my videos, he actually puts a cow emoji. So thanks, Brad.
See, we have these rituals. It's special. It means you're important.
I had snacks one live of my entire life, and now I'm a grazing cow. Yeah. Anyway, that's
that snack, man.
Thick skin over here.
That's it.
No, but seriously, if I want to stay in touch, Ryan, and see if there's any way I can help or get involved, I think that would be great. I love it.
Yeah, I appreciate that very much so. And yeah, I hope to run into you guys at the National. I know you guys will be busy and everybody will be, running up to you guys. But yeah.
Well, absolutely. Me, Dustin, not so much, but me, yeah. They'll be asking Dustin if he'll take the picture of me and them.
Actually, I got invited to Blake Jameson's trade night, and they were like, do you like, I don't know if Brad would be upset about it. And I was like, he doesn't need to know about it, honestly. Like, I'm going to need some time away.
Yeah, right. And I think it's ironic that we're going to end this with Ryan having the best visual camera and us having the worst. And this is like the first time you're doing an interview on YouTube, and my camera looks horrible.
Be like, hey, do you remember that time when Brad turned into Skeletor on the live stream? Holy God!
This is why I don't use the laptop camera. This is like dreadful.
If you saw my setup, you'd be embarrassed for me. So I'm just happy this worked out. So again, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anyways, guys, any final thoughts, Dustin, before we head out?
That's it. I think that you've pretty much ruined the last 15 minutes of this. So let's just wrap it up.
Well, as long as we get that first 45 minutes of viewership, that's good. Guys, thanks so much for joining us. Definitely say hi to Ryan if you're going to the National. Follow him on GemRate on Instagram. Then you can find his website. Dustin, you're probably already following him. He's still looking for more subscribers. He texts me that every single day. If you're not subscribed to his channel, don't watch his videos. Just subscribe so he feels better. And can't wait to see y'all in Chicago.